Can you hear me now?
Oh, there he is.
There I am. There we are. Basically,
Live.
we got three people in the we have a roommate who's doing a Zoom call, literally a room across. So bandwidth on the second floor that we normally don't have. So apologies to
No worries.
everyone listening here
Yeah.
live.
So Seattle, Washington.
Correct.
Obviously, playoff implications here for both teams. The East is so bad that Washington was able to basically throw away the first half of the season and still be in it down in December. So what do you make of this? Do you think Seattle is at risk here?
No, not at all. I think this is the worst possible team for Washington to run into.
Yeah.
I think if they play some of the teams on the NFC side, they could give them a run. Like, I really like Washington's chance against the Rams. I really like their chances if they play Tampa Bay. A defensive, grinded out, whoever commits less mistakes. Washington's just not going to be able to score enough points with Seattle. The Washington and Green Bay are the two, or Seattle and Green Bay are the two teams Washington just will not be able to beat. So I think this game's a blowout. Washington's played really, really well recently, but so has Seattle. So yeah, I don't like Washington's chance. We'll have to wait another week to possibly clinch the NFC East.
I think so.
I think so.
I'm
Yeah.
with you there.
Yeah. Let's keep it in the NFC West. Just briefly, any chance the Rams lay an egg against the Jets? Because the Rams have had some bad performances. I mean, there's been some games where they've looked really, really bad.
I think that the Jets are just too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree.
I would love to make a sexy pick here and be like, oh, the Rams get upset, but the Jets are just too bad.
The Jets are just they're just atrocious. What about that 17.5-point line though? What do you think about that?
That's I hate lines like that. I never like anything over 2 touchdowns because it's still the NFL, but teams can beat by 2 touchdowns every single week. So the Jets are pretty pathetic. I could see the Rams covering. If the Rams are hot and if the Rams are on, they could be my 30. But like you said, there's enough. There are enough question marks around the Rams and how consistent they are that 17.5. I mean, they could win by a field goal.
Mm-hmm. In my mind, every game the Jets play right now is their Super Bowl because regardless of how bad they are, they do not want to go 0-16. Like, nobody on that team wants to go 0-16. But I agree with you. I actually think the Rams cover. I mean, what the Seahawks did to the Jets last week is borderline embarrassing.
I mean, the Jets can want whatever they want. They're just not good enough to stop it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move it again. Staying in the NFC West, Eagles at Cardinals. Tell me what you think about Jalen Hurts. Do you think it was one game flash in the pan, or do you think they kind of found a recipe here?
I don't trust the team that has mishandled this Wentz situation to this degree to all of a sudden in 2 weeks have a great game plan for Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I just don't think it happens on a consistent basis. I don't think he's that athlete. I think he's definitely his legs are a threat, but he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Cam Newton. He's not Tim Tebow. I don't think he's going to survive the NFL as a run-first quarterback. I don't think he has the athleticism to do it.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think Philly is who we think they are. They're a bottom 5 team in the league. Technically, if they win out, they could win the division.
That's just a symptom of how bad the East is, where any team with a pulse right now could win the division.
Yeah, because they got Cardinals, then they got Cowboys, Washington.
Is anybody mathematically eliminated in that division?
No. No, I don't think so. Mm-mm.
So that's a good sign of how bad they are.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the Eagles. I think it really comes down to the Giants and the football team.
Yeah. No, it does. What do you make of Washington or out of Arizona 14 weeks? Like, are they just going to get bounced in that first round when they make it, or could they make a splash?
I think Arizona, and I'm trying not to exaggerate here because we're talking on this point, and it's hard sometimes to not fall into the trap of exaggerating a point, but they may have the widest gap between their floor and ceiling out of any team in the NFL.
Yeah.
I've seen some bad performances where they look terrible. They look like a 2-14 team, but they have the firepower, especially offensively. If they're on, they could beat anybody.
So yeah, I think the Browns and the Cardinals are very close in that capacity. I think the Browns can be very, very bad, but I think the Browns can also be very, very good.
I think the Browns, top to bottom, have a more complete roster. I think their ceilings, their floor is a little higher, but I also think their ceiling is a little lower.
Yeah,
just
I
because
agree with that.
Just because of how the Browns have to do it. The Browns aren't going to be able to play with anybody if they don't establish the run first.
Which is insane when you have the two running backs that they have. Like that's insane that you even have to say that. But
but Arizona can do it however they want. Kenyon Drake's a guy. I don't think he's anything special. But what the wide receiver talent they have, I think, is very special.
Yeah. So right now, if the season would end, it would be Arizona, New Orleans. I think that is just a horrible matchup for Arizona.
But again, do you not see a scenario where Arizona outguns the Saints in a shootout, especially without Drew Brees? I don't know if the Saints can beat a good Arizona performance without Drew Brees.
Interesting. Yeah, I did not think that, but there's just so many unknowns about that quarterback situation, and I think the Saints are playing really, really good football.
Oh, and their defense is amazing.
Yeah,
for sure. But I think you need the kind of firepower to break through. I think if I'm the Saints and Drew Brees doesn't establish that he is healthy and capable of driving that offense, I think the Seahawks in Arizona scare the shit out of me.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. I mean, they're literally Jekyll and Hyde. There's no doubt there. All right, let's move on to our game of the week because I want to talk about this in length because I think it is in my opinion, 14 weeks into the year, it is a Super Bowl preview. Chiefs Saints. Give me your lowdown on this one.
This is another one where like even the Chiefs, who are reigning Super Bowl champions, who have Mahomes, who have an explosive offense, have had a lot of Jekyll and Hyde to their game, where they've had some down weeks, even on a route on the way to only losing one game. They've had some close calls against some teams that aren't on their anywhere near their pedigree, which is scary when you talk about playoff football. The Saints are running as well as they've ever ran. They're still continuing to beat the shit out of teams with Taysom Hill at quarterback, who it works. And Sean Payton's the kind of guy that can scheme for it. I just don't see the Saints keeping up with the Chiefs in their current state. Now,
with Taysom Hill, no. Do you have a different opinion if this is happening a month from now and Drew Brees has a game under his belt and he's ready to go?
If he has a game under his belt and looks good, then yeah, I think the Saints can beat him. I think the Saints have the defensive firepower to hold them at bay.
Because the Super Bowl is roughly 6 weeks away. It doesn't look like Drew Brees is probably going to play a regular season game. Maybe one at best. But I feel
like I need to see Drew Brees play at a high level before I can say that I think the Chiefs are at risk.
All right, so it sounds like you still have a lot of questions on the Saints. So before we jump back into this game, who do you think can beat the Chiefs?
This is a weird NFL year. I think. Do
you think Green Bay has a shot?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't
think their defense can stop.
I don't think there's a clear clear front runner here. I think Pittsburgh and the Chiefs have looked great all year, as far as total body of work. They're all up record. The Saints have looked great. I mean, the Seahawks have looked good at times. I mean, there's weeks where DK Metcalf doesn't look stoppable, doesn't look containable. If you have one of those weeks, then I think the Seahawks could beat them. There's a handful of teams that can beat anybody this year. But the Chiefs A game, I don't think anybody else's A game is good enough to beat the Chiefs A game.
No. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
when they're scoring at will, when they're flipping the ball to Tyreek Hill, when Kelsey's going to have 150 yards, like the Chiefs A game, best of the best. I don't think there's any other team's A game that's good enough to beat them. I think the Saints are the closest.
I agree.
I don't think the Packers A game is that great. It's just they don't play their C game very often.
Correct. Yeah, I think they probably have the highest floor in the league. The Packers do.
Yeah, because Aaron Rodgers doesn't turn the ball over. If you don't turn the ball over, your floor is high.
Yep. No, I agree with that. And Aaron Jones is playing better than anyone would have expected. Back-to-back years.
Aaron Jones.
Yeah, exactly. Last thing I want to touch on in this game, Derek, is should Chiefs fans be concerned about Mahomes' streaky play, or is this a sense of he's going through the motions and turns it on when he wants to turn it on?
So that is something that I think is really interesting to look at about Mahomes going forward here is does he have that kind of Kobe Bryant mentality where he wants to step on your throat every single opportunity? It doesn't seem like he necessarily does.
No, I don't think he does.
It seems like at times he's coasting. He has that huge deal. He's doing terrible insurance commercials. Like he seems to be settling into that kind of Aaron Rodgers space. And it's funny that they do those commercials together where Aaron Rodgers just kind of like coasts sometimes.
Yeah.
If he gets complacent, sometimes you go for that extra gear and it's not there.
Yeah, so no, I agree.
That would concern me. But as far as just pure ability, I mean, those guys are super similar. And again, in that right, I think there's a lot of similarities between those two. I mean, high-end arm talent, really found success relatively early, weren't necessarily on the radar to begin with. I mean, Rodgers was kind of a later pick. He had to sit. And I mean, in Mahomes, if you sit behind Alex Smith, what does that say?
Right? Exactly. He couldn't beat Alex Smith out.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's all good points. All good points. A little preview for the gambling show. The over-under's 51.5. Am I the only insane one to think that's the easiest bet of all time, the over at 51.5?
I don't think the Saints are going to score a ton, just because I don't buy into Taysom Hill. I think if the Chiefs come out and they're kind of a middle of the road performance, they're kind of their C or B kind of game, I could see an under there. But if they're really pushing and trying to run the floor and that forces Peyton to open it up, I mean, I could see 80 points in that game.
Yeah.
So no, I'd go over.
You'd go over?
I see more paths and more ways that over hits than the under.
Yep. I agree. I think this is over central. It's not my lock of the week. I'll save that for Sunday. Next question I have you in regards to this game. Do you think both teams play it pretty close to the vest if they're worried about a Super Bowl preview? Or do you think, the Chiefs run their trick play and the Saints run some of their more Taysom Hill aggressive packages? How close to the vest do you think both these teams play going into Sunday?
For different reasons here. So I think the Chiefs feel like they need to win because they want to keep home field.
Yep.
So I think they'll run as many of those trick plays and go as deep in the bag as they have to. I don't know how deep that is necessarily, but I think that they're a little more. They have more to gain from this win. Mm-hmm. The Saints, I think Sean Payton's just really arrogant and overconfident almost to a fault in his own ability, and he tries to get too cute sometimes.
Look at that onside kick in the Super Bowl. That's the definition of getting to, and it worked for him. I mean, it was magic.
That's the hard part. Is that more times than not, it works for him, and not because it should, just because it just worked. I could see Sean Payton does shit like that all the time. And I think his bags of tricks is pretty deep. as far as what
I
they
think
have
both
developed.
teams are. You see a lot of weird stuff out of both of those teams.
There's a handful of teams that dedicate more time to the obscure.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are definitely top of that. I think the Saints are up there. The Patriots are obviously up there. The Ravens,
the Browns not typically, but they have this year. I feel like the Browns have ran a million trick plays.
Yep, and the Ravens have started doing it. I think that's kind of a response because they're tired of being on the losing end of it from New England. That they've started like exploiting some wrinkles as well. Yeah.
I think the key to that, maybe I'm oversimplifying this. You kind of need the athletes to do it, right? You need a Jarvis Landry that can make that throw. You need a Taysom Hill that can do something wacky. You need a Tyreek Hill who's just insane. Like you look at Julian Edelman who can make those throws. Like, to me, like you and I are both right. There's definitely those teams that have that are more reluctant to do it than others. But it's funny how those teams always end up having those players too.
I think they value them more.
Exactly. No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I think those teams they'll give an uptick to a guy that can be good for a wrinkle. A Trey Burton throwing the football.
Yep.
Like or what's his face? The Redskins just did it a couple times in the last game.
Logan Thomas. I love Logan Thomas.
Yeah, they had a few different looks where he literally got under center. It's not even like it's like a weird trick play. He got under center.
Yep.
And then to your point, the Ravens have started doing it recently. Did they start doing it recently out of necessity, and that's why they targeted an RG3, or do they realize, hey, wait, we have RG3? They have that shotgun Heisman is what the Heisman formation they call it, where RG3 lines up to one side of Lamar and Ingram's on the other side.
Yeah. No, it's fun. I'm with you. I think both these teams lay everything out there. The Saints aren't the number 1 seed yet, and I think they want it really, really bad. And I think the Chiefs already have the blueprint of what happens when it goes through Arrowhead. So yeah, I think all the trick plays are out. I think both teams leave everything out there, and I think this is going to be a fantastic game. I'm really excited.
The Chiefs also, I think one thing that is hard to overlook as far as what home field advantage means and why some teams want it more than others. If you're the Saints and you don't have, I don't think they have home fans yet, or if they do, it's limited because again, it's an indoor stadium. It doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as the Arrowhead is the most full of any stadium right now. So there's more to gain there.
For sure. Yep. Totally agree. Are there any other games you wanted to cover on this week's slate?
I think those are the main ones. I mean, it's hard to look past. Like Chiefs Saints is going to be great. New England Miami weirdly has a lot of implications. Tonight's game, by the time anybody's listening to this hears it, already have been played. But just personally for me, I have a lot riding on some Chargers performing well for my fantasy football team.
Yeah, that game is about to be underway. I obviously I'm heavily invested in the Monday night game. I know you have been critical of the Steelers. So are the Bengals the perfect slump buster, or is this honestly just two bad teams going against each other?
Don't try to trap me into saying the Steelers are a bad team. They're not a bad team.
I did.
The Steelers are not a bad team. The Steelers are a very good team. I just don't think they're this world beater that their fans thought they were.
Yeah.
And again, typically idiots have the most to say. So the loudest voices you're going to hear, and any place that you would interact with opposing team fans is going to be the idiots with the most to say. But the Steelers never were these world beaters. If they went 16-0, it would be the least deserved 16-0 ever. Schedule wasn't particularly tough, and people point to the Chiefs. Yeah, the Chiefs don't have a particularly tough schedule either. I'm not saying that other teams are better or the Steelers are bad. I'm just saying that they're overrated. You can be very good and overrated at the same time.
See,
Derek Jeter is a Hall of Fame player, but is one of the most overrated baseball players of all time.
Yeah, see, I think the Steelers are playing bad, but I know. I wish Marcus was on this podcast. I think every Steeler fan would have written in blood if you would have said they would have went 12-4 and been the number 2 seed, which I think they're going to do.
Of course.
I think they're going to win, and then I think they're going to lose the last 2 games, limping into the playoffs. But back in August, me and Marcus would have said, yes, let's not even play the season if you would have told me 12-4, number 1 in the AFC North, and the number 2 seed. So,
but we can't operate that in a vacuum. If you said 12-4, but you wouldn't have 2/3 of your linebacking core and your receivers couldn't catch a cold,
and you're going to lose 3 or 4 to end the season.
Right. And you're going to be turning backwards into the playoffs. And, oh, by the way, Deontay Johnson can't catch a fucking football.
Yeah. Dude, how funny was that? I know this isn't a reaction pod, but they bench him for a half, and then his first throw of the second half, he drops it. Like, that told me everything right there. Nothing's going to get to this guy. Like,
the thing is, like, it's an ability thing.
Yep.
And Steelers fans have been through this. I mean, why is Deontay Johnson any different than Lima Swede?
Yeah. No, it's too scary that it hurts. It's too scary.
Blazing fast, can run all the routes, but can't catch the football when it gets there.
Yep. I mean, we've had Darius Hayward-Bay, we had Dante Moncrief. I mean, again, the Steelers every couple of years fall in love with these speed guys. Deontay was able to.
The bad thing about Deontay too is he's made of glass.
Yep.
Even if he does catch the football, every time he gets hit, you got to be nervous.
For sure. Yeah, no, I do think the line's 13 points. I'm not sure the Steelers scored 20. And that means all the Bengals have to do is score is 10. I think this is a hideous game, but I do think the Steelers win this.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else? Any storylines? Anything there in the NFL before we cover some non-NFL topics before we bring this thing home?
Nope. Let's do it.
Cool. So it is college football championship week, which is weird to be having. I mean, we normally are already planning for some bowl games going into Christmas week, but we have some college football championship games going on, and I think there's a few major headlines here. Not many. But USC is stated to play a 3-2 Oregon team. They're likely going to beat Oregon. They're going to be 6-0 and undefeated. They're not going to make the College Football Hall of Fame, but
playoffs.
College football playoffs. Do you think they're mad at the Pac-12 for abbreviating their season? Because I know Ohio State fans are mad. I don't know if the actual school's mad. So I think a better question is, do you think USC fans are mad?
Fans, absolutely. Fans aren't. Fans only care about like bragging rights and things like that. They don't have to make the business decisions. They don't care about real world implications. They're not liable if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
So I think fans are pissed because that's what fans do. We don't have to make those decisions. Like those are things that we don't have to care about. Sunday through Friday.
Yeah, there's likely going to be 3 undefeated teams that don't even make the top 10 of the college football rankings.
So is that why is that though? Is that just based on I don't understand why they wouldn't make the rankings if they've played 6 games?
Mostly. So I'm saying this as a biased IU football fan. I mean, they have 5 SEC teams in there. There's no reason a 2-loss Georgia team should be in the top 10.
Yeah.
There's no reason that Texas A&M, who got blown out by Alabama, should be a top 5 team.
Right.
Florida, who just lost to a losing record freshman quarterback LSU, is somehow still it's just SEC insane right now in the college football playoff. But yeah.
So why is that the Pac's fault?
So why, in my opinion, I don't know why the Big Ten and Pac-12 waited as long as they did. I think both erred on the side of caution, which is the right thing to do in a global pandemic, but they waited too long. In my opinion, they waited 6 to 7 weeks, depending on the conference.
So do you blame those conferences, or do you blame the NCAA for still trying to squeeze in a season where teams were different conferences in different geographies with different levels of risk to the pandemic had to make decisions, and the NCAA didn't accommodate that and stuck to their normal schedule.
So the NCAA has nothing to do.
I'm always like down to blame the NCAA for everything. So.
Right. So that's all up to the individual conferences. The NCAA is basically pushovers, and
right, but they can't be like, "Hey, do whatever you want, do whatever you think is best," but you still have to fit it in this same package that it's always been in.
Yeah, no, I think we're just going to disagree with this. I think it falls squarely on the conferences to not like. If I'm USC, I'm mad at the Pac-12. I'm not mad at the NCAA.
I think the NCAA should have built in more open weeks, stretch the season out so other teams have the flexibility. It's the same thing we see in the NFL where there's no flexibility. It's pissing fans off. I think that the college football championship should have been after the Super Bowl.
So now I understand what you're saying. You're not saying, you're saying why did the season have to end at the start of January?
The format that the college football put in place only allowed conferences to make two decisions. Either you play a full slate starting day one, or you lose games. I don't think those should have been the only two options. I think you should have been able to play a full schedule over a longer period of time. They're college kids. They can take 3 weeks in between games. They can take 2 weeks between games. You can have different amounts of open time built in. Let's say, okay, college football, any games that you play count. We're going to play this instead of playing over 3 months. We're going to play over 2 months or 3 months or whatever the case is. We're going to add an extra 8 weeks to the season.
Yeah.
And now we play after the Super Bowl, closer to the draft. We skip all the stupid bowl games that are leading into it. Minus, are they even playing bowl games this year?
About 50% of them have already canceled.
Right.
So
bowl games don't matter.
20 bowl games.
You lead it right into the draft. I think you play the college football championship at the end of February.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot of logic to that. Let's jump to another topic here that doesn't have a lot of logic. So Ohio State is likely not going to play. There's likely not going to be a Big Ten championship. They're going to be 5-0. Do teams that are 7-1, 9-1, or Coastal Carolina's case 12-0 do a lot of? They're going to put Ohio State in, and I think they deserve it. But Ohio State only played 5 games and didn't win their conference. Do you think Ohio State, just because their talent is good enough that they deserve to be in there? Because that's what the college football playoff is saying. Like, they're good enough they could have played 1 game and got it, is basically what they're saying with Ohio State.
It's tough because this is a situation where I don't necessarily agree with how it was done. But in this case, I feel like the ends justify the means. Where what's the goal? Do you want the best 4 teams in the playoff, or do you want
4 most deserving?
But is that the same thing?
It isn't, in my opinion. It isn't.
Okay. Well, I see. To me, the people most deserving are the best teams. The teams that should be in there. The teams that have the most claim to a championship. Where I mean, Coastal Carolina could have went 36-0. They're not there's no situation where, okay, let's say let's make it to the playoff and they beat, we have to make everything equitable. So we put this 12-0 team from over here in, we put this 9-0, middle class, nobody cares about team over here in, a bunch of shitty teams play each other. Coastal Carolina comes out on top and we say, all right, this year Coastal Carolina was the best football team in college football.
Yeah.
No, they weren't.
No, yeah, you're right.
Your goal is to get to the end where the best team in college football is the one left standing. And if you put a team that couldn't possibly be considered the best team in college football, what's the point?
Yep. Yeah, no, I disagree with you. I think Ohio State didn't. Or I think Ohio State's a top 4 team. They don't have a top 4 resume. They shouldn't be included. But I think I'm showing a little.
So Army went 8-2, and they played a bunch of nobodies. If they win those other 2 games, they played 7 of their games at home, or 8 of their games at home. 7, all but 3. Yeah, 7. So if they run the table and go 10-0, I'm not changing. Like, they don't belong in the college football playoff.
Yeah,
it's not 1950 anymore. Army is not the best school in the country.
Don't you wish it was, though?
I mean, yeah, we've been running the triple option, winning natties. I mean, those national championships are forever, though. Those 3 Heisman trophies are still sitting in the offices.
Right, exactly. Speaking of championships, can you believe the NBA has started again? Like they're going to start here in about 5 days.
I'm
Does
not
that just
surprised
blow
that
your
they're
mind?
starting. I'm surprised that they're starting without a bubble, though.
Yeah,
That to me is the strangest part because like the NHL doesn't know if they're playing yet. They don't know how they're playing, and they're playing in a lot of cases. I think in 5 or 6 instances in the same building. So you can't tell me like the Toronto Raptors are definitely going to play in Amalie Arena. We don't know if the Lightning are yet.
yeah,
Like it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And it's not like we're talking the difference between football where you're protecting, 53 guys plus training squad, total of probably 75 players plus training staff plus everything. Like we're talking 12 guys in one instance and 20 guys in the other.
yeah.
Small
No,
team.
that and NBA did their playoffs the best. Like, wasn't there like very few cases? I mean, the NHL had 0, so I guess by technically NHL,
But they
best,
really deployed the same plan.
Yeah, and that's
So
why I
they
think
had
they're
one
rushing
bubble.
into this.
Yeah, they had
seem to,
one bubble in play-ins for the NBA. NHL had 2 bubbles in play-ins, and then they combined the 2 bubbles into one in the conference finals. That way, they weren't traveling the week of the Stanley Cup. It was a great plan, and it worked. I don't know why the NBA is abandoning that if they're playing in this. The cases are on the rise right now.
Yep.
In a lot of areas that they play because NBA cities are in large, they're big cities. I mean, all sports teams are. Minus like NHL, some of those Canadian cities are tiny. Edmonton's not a very, very big city, but they like it doesn't make sense that we're talking about the same building and one league's playing and the other league's not.
Yeah, no, I think I can't believe they're playing again because it seems like they played yesterday, and I think they're going into this so poorly without planning. It reminds me a lot of what the NFL did, and while I think the NFL, what grade would you give the NFL right now as far as how they handled this season in a pandemic?
It's hard to do that until it's over for me, just because I think the playoffs could get. I mean, you can't move playoff games if there's a huge outbreak. But to this point, I'd give them like a C plus.
I'm going C minus for the NFL with the caveat if no games get canceled in the playoffs, then that vaults up. I'm giving the NFL a C minus. I would have given the NBA an A, and I can't believe they knocked their playoffs out of the park and seemed to be rushing into this like the NFL did.
Yeah, the only issue that the NBA had was like people sneaking people into the bubble and some of like the extra festivities they put on that I just don't feel like was necessary. I think they're creating a barbershop and basically like a nightclub and all that stuff. That shit was stupid. I think the NHL did better in that regard. They just kept it, purely time on task. There was no instances of people sneaking people into the bubble. But those are the gold standards, the NBA and the NHL, as far as how you do this. And so to me, the NFL had that information.
Yep.
And they chose not to use it.
Yeah, no, I think completely negligent, in my opinion. But I know on a normal pod, this probably wouldn't get covered. But it's you and me, and we can do whatever the hell we want on podcast number 47.
Hell yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about, could the NHL teams really play in outdoor stadiums this year? Because the outdoor stadiums we've seen, some of them are a risk, an injury risk, and a pretty sloppy game. So
yeah, the ice always plays so slow, and the problem is only like half the league could do it.
Yeah.
So we don't know. There's still some question marks on when the start is, how the divisions are going to look, and if this Canadian division is going to be a thing because it's still up in the air if they can travel between provinces in Canada. So Canada could get away with it for the first half of the season, then they'd have to move back indoors. Everybody would. Have to move back indoors probably halfway through this season. But you're talking about consistent weather and the ability to play outdoors. Like, I don't even know if Tampa could do that today.
Right.
I don't know if Dallas could do that today. I don't know if San Jose could get away with it. But there's South Florida, definitely not. Like, there's a handful
Hell
of
no.
teams. There's a handful of teams where I just don't know how it works. And then the question is where. I mean, the Super Bowl is being played in Tampa. That's going to tie up the Raymond James Stadium. So where's this mythical outdoor facility going to be held? I mean, they're going to play where the Blue Jays play. Like, I don't understand.
It makes absolutely no sense. I hate the outdoor games in general.
It's hard to take care of the ice.
Yeah. Especially for a team like I'm a Penguins fan. And Sid's had some awful injuries on outdoor games.
Well, I can't comment in that regard. Tampa has, even though they're a marquee team, they have literally never played an outdoor game.
Yeah,
home or away. I mean, we can be the away team. We'll play Boston in Fenway. Like, I don't care.
Would you go to that? Is that a bucket list item if Tampa would go and play
an outdoor game?
Yeah.
At this point, I probably would, because it may never happen again.
Yeah. I think it's a horrible idea. What do you think about the realignment? Because I'm a big fan of that. I like the realignment that they're going with in the NHL.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I've seen two different plans. I've seen kind of a let's cluster people together as close as possible plan.
Are they not doing that? I thought that was for sure. I thought that was locked in.
So there's another plan in place.
Okay, I missed that one.
So the one that it seems to be getting traction is the concept that, okay, well, in Canada, if we make a Canadian division, they have to go East Coast to West Coast. So everybody should have to travel West Coast to East Coast. So they basically are stripping off the United States in like 3 sections.
Yep.
Coast to coast. So it would be like Florida, Tampa, Nashville, Dallas, Vegas, San Jose, and then basically just reproducing that straight across. So the 3 California teams would be in 3 different divisions.
I hate that.
I get what they're trying to do from an equity standpoint about traveling time zones, but at the same time, like, let's keep our exposure as limited as possible. Let's not have these guys trekking across the country. Why put more stress in travel time?
It screws Canada, but mitigate your risk. It's a global pandemic, and Canada's numbers are also awesome.
Why fuck everybody just to like
appease Canada
to equally fuck everybody?
Exactly. I did not know of that second plan. Considering how well they did the first time around, I don't see a way they can.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh had Anaheim in their division.
Yeah, that's
so the other plan. The other plan I love because it's like
I'm with you.
Yeah, and personally, even just selfishly, the Tampa's division was weak.
Oh, you guys might have 1,000,000 points. You guys shattered the point record on a little bit of tougher schedule. Yeah. You guys might blow that out. The Penguins division was brutal. Oh, I mean, they're a veteran team winding down.
It's like the Metro plus Boston.
Yeah.
Right. It's like they're not the team you want to add in.
No, not at all. It was pretty tough. One thing that it's blanking from my mind, have they given a date range of when they're going to go back?
They've been eyeballing the 13th. But again, that day keeps getting closer and hasn't been cemented.
Yeah. I hope they figure it out. I hope they don't rush into it like the NBA. The NHL is one of my favorite sports. It's one of your favorite sports.
Yeah. They're looking at a 53-game season.
Smart.
I can just tell you from my, like, they didn't take the season ticket payment in December. Because I think they're trying to figure out how many games, and they don't want to have to take money and then give it back and have to worry about the logistics of that. So they're putting a pause on season ticket payments. Because I mean, I'm 2 months away from being paid up for this season that may not happen.
Yeah. I mean, obviously NHL season tickets are more expensive than college. Mine was pretty easy though. I fully paid. I'm a IU football and basketball season ticket. Football is a penny in a bucket, but 24 college basketball games is pretty expensive, at about $80, $85 a ticket. So, they refunded to me like that. It was pretty simple. I wouldn't be too worried if something changes.
But I think that kind of speaks to the uncertainty of what's going to happen. The fact that they pause taking payment.
Yeah. January 13th, month away from hockey returning.
Doesn't make sense to me because especially so let's say even everything works great. There is a Canadian division. They're allowed to travel between provinces. Everything works great. They still have to clear like COVID testing and protocols any players that play for Canadian teams that are in other countries right now. So they'd have to go in and quarantine for 14 days before they could start practicing. So if you start looking at like, how a fucking clock and calendar work, how does you can't start the 13th unless you expect players to get into the country before New Year's.
See, I thought your 13th was start of preseason. You're
saying
no, 13th.
They want to drop the puck on the regular season on the 13th.
Oh, see, that changes it all. I thought you were saying that's when preseason would start.
No.
Wow.
Teams, everybody but the San Jose Sharks have been having informal practices and skates already.
Yeah, no, that seems now I'm not on board. Like I thought we were going to get.
No, there's not enough time. Like they're gonna have to push it back a little bit, I think. Or
I agree,
shorten the season,
which they won't do.
I don't think they'll go shorter than 53 because if you go shorter than 53, now you start like. I don't want somebody to win a Stanley Cup and have a big asterisk next to it.
It already does. Don't worry, yours already does.
No way.
But what a note to end on. Podcast 47, Tampa Bay, asterisk Stanley Cup. Everyone agrees. Big news, huge news. Anything else you want to cover, man?
No, I think that's it, man. Good.
Big fantasy week for people who are either in the second round or playoffs are kicking off. So good luck to all the listeners. I put up, Derek knows, Derek gives me a justifiably hard time. I'm in 2 leagues and made playoffs in neither. So I have absolutely nothing to worry about this weekend. Derek, Godspeed. I know you have a chance to win it all this year. So good luck to you.
I feel better about the keeper league than the other league.
Who do you need this weekend? Who are some players that our fans should be looking out for?
Well, Justin Herbert just threw a touchdown 5 minutes ago. He's one of the guys I need to go off. I'm heavily invested in him in all leagues, but especially in this keeper league, which is the most important league that he's playing into me. I need Hopkins to have one of his A games and not whatever else he does on those other weeks. Dalvin needs to go off. I need Jonathan Taylor
against Chicago. Are you worried about how has Dalvin played Chicago already?
Dalvin has.
He did. He had 15 points week 10.
I would like more than 15, obviously. But 15 might get it done. My sleeper, I went on the waiver wire for a tight end. Wasn't big fan of Gesicki against New England. I went for Dawson Knox, and I know that's so touchdown dependent, but I like him. I think he scores a touchdown this week.
Josh Allen is so fire right now. Taking any weapon on Josh Allen is it is a flyer, but if I had to choose between Knox or Gesicki, I would take Knox.
Yep.
So I think that's a right call. And then I got to tell, you're starting 2 guys I traded you. So I actually want that to be a good trade. So I'm hoping
is that
Brandon Ayuk and Landry.
Oh yeah. I need both. I think I'm playing Landry.
You're playing both of them.
I'm playing both of them. Yeah, my flexes.
Yep. Yeah. Going to be a great matchup, I think. And so there you guys heard it. Derek's playing in the playoffs. We want Dalvin Cook. We want Hopkins. And we want a touchdown from Dawson Knox. There we go.
And about 25 more points from Herbert tonight.
There we go. All right, buddy. Till next time.
All right. See ya.
All right. See you, everybody.